Alright. Sorry for being late. 20 minutes is quite a lot of delay. But anyways, this will be the fifth part of industrial techno production. In the last week, we almost finished the whole percussion. If I remember well, there's one or two hi-hats to equalize. Aside from that, we also created some sort of a lead sound. At least this was the sound that was supposed to be a lead. So now when the lead sounds like that, I'm not certainly sure how I'm going to fit this to the track, as it doesn't sound maybe very industrial. For me, it reminds more some futuristic drum and bass track. But okay, let's see what we can do with that lead sound then. One of the concern I had is that when I play this lead with the kick drum, the lead is getting lost. So we can play the lead with the beat. And maybe the reason for why this lead doesn't stand out from the kick as much as it could, I think the reason could be the pitch of the lead. So let's try again, adjusting the melody in the clip, in the MIDI clip. And this lead will be pitched up a bit. Also, what makes this sound both special and maybe a bit difficult to fit to the current beat is the envelope 2 that is modulating the wavetable position of the first oscillator. This is exactly the modulation that gives that certain sound in the beginning of each note. But without this modulation, the lead is going to sound a bit boring. Maybe let's tweak once more the synthesizer and maybe we can create a bit different version of it. Or maybe I will find some single setting that, after adjusting, will make the lead fit the kick drum better. When it comes to fitting the sound into the kick drum, I can actually play this kick in the background and return to the wavetable. Okay, nothing so far seems to work good. But I think what I'm going to do is while I will keep the envelope 2 that is modulated in the wavetable position here, I'm going to adjust a bit that envelope to make this modulation much shorter. This sounds slightly better. In wavetable, what is left is to maybe adjust the unison detune once more. The sub oscillator probably will not be useful. No, it won't be. The sound gets then, with the sub oscillator, the sound gets too fat. I don't need that sound to be very full. So it seems like there's nothing more I can do about the synthesizer itself. But after adjusting the second envelope, it doesn't sound that bad. What is left is to maybe keep resampling this sound a bit. Maybe not resampling, but just processing. Last week I finished with using some of the distortion on the dry sound. This is what does the vinyl distortion do to the lead. It makes it a bit more audible and present in the track. I didn't want to distort the reverb because it was making the sound too distorted. The reverb sound was too distracting. Okay, if I want to resample this to make the sound maybe more interesting, the first thing I'm trying out is the shifter effect. Before I play around with the effects order, so whether the shifter should be after or before the reverb, at first let's just see if it's going to make any sense. Shifter working like that seems interesting. Okay, let's see what does it sound like with the pad playing in the background. Okay, I see. I feel like the problem is with the sound here having too many mid and low frequencies. Let's see if a high pass filter then will not sound better. Okay, and now the shifter. Shifter makes the lead sound much more industrial and eerie, but actually this is not surprising on many sounds. Frequency shifter working like that is going to make everything sound more eerie, creepy, or well, industrial. It sounds well. Let's try other options. And the shifter sounds best. Also, we will keep that shifter after the dry and reverb chain because the reverb also should be pitched up in such an unnatural way. While in the shifter there are many controls, for example, an envelope follower section or the LFO section that would modulate the amount by how many hertz we pitch up the synthesizer is going to be useless. I want to have a fixed change of the pitch, so we are fine with just using the coarse control only. This effect is a bit too complex. Let me look through the Ableton effects to see what else I can add to that synthesizer. Since there is already a large reverb added, I'm not interested in using the delay. That could make the lead too maybe overpowered, or I wouldn't like the lead to take too many space in the beat. So these effects will not be interesting. Regarding the distortion, we can try to distort the sound a bit more. Just to see quickly what we could do, I'm going to try some of the effects here. Okay, what about the pedal? The pedal sounds very interesting. We might want to keep it. The erosion adds too much of that crackle and noise, which is not needed here. Okay, let's try the overdrive too. The overdrive sounds even cleaner than the pedal effect. So let's get rid of the pedal. Now onto the dynamic tube. As expected, dynamic tube only adds some extra crackle to the sound. Okay, what else I can try to use? Saturator, vinyl distortion. I didn't try yet the amp and the drum bass. These are the last effects I can try out. Both amp and saturator sound bad. The last effect is the drum bass. Okay, I'm left with with the overdrive. Let's adjust it. Let's see whether it should be before or after the shifter. And the effect will be after everything. It sounds logical because if I used some distortion before the reverb is not that interested and sounds way different from the dry lead. It's in the same reverb when the overdrive is used as the last effect. To have some, again, context, I will play the pad in the background. You can already turn down the volume of the lead because, especially after using the overdrive, it is way too loud. While I, while I will be interested in adding quite a lot of distortion to that lead, using the tone knob will be a bad thing because the tone adds high frequencies after the distortion stage. And right now, when the sound is kind of muffled, it fits the pad well. But if I used especially a lot of tone, then most of that crackle and high frequencies I'm adding in that way are going to cover everything else in the track. The pad itself, the percussion, the hi-hats. So I'm going to keep the tone nearly to zero. Once more, let's add the pad. As usual, it's difficult to say what exactly does the dynamics theta and the overdrive do. Maybe we could say that it indeed has some correlation or influence on the dynamics of the sound. So in reality, we always have to listen to what is happening to the sound when we adjust this theta. And adjust it, yes, according to what I hear. At last, the drum width knob. And the overdrive is adjusted. What is tempting is to use another rhythmic volume modulation So something very similar to what I did in the pad group here. Let me see, somewhere in the pad sound I had a shaper and LFO that was given the rhythm. Ah yes, here it is. Let me see if something similar is not going to work on the lead sound. So I really dubbed. No, it's going to sound completely wrong. The problem is that, yes, since I'm already using some volume modulation on the pad sound, using the same thing on the lead sound will not make these two sounds distinct enough. So since a volume modulation was already added on the pad, using the same thing on the lead, it's not going to be interesting. I know that in the description, in the channel name, I made a note to myself that I want to try it to use some compression or OTT, but this will be something I will add in the end. For now, let me see if there isn't anything more I can add to this lead sound if I want to adjust the sound more. We already distorted the sound, the dry sound, and as well as the whole sound with the reverb. Probably distorting the reverb itself. No, it's not going to also sound wrong, so no more distortion here. Regarding the compression, I will return to that later. I can also try either chorus or phaser effect. I doubt that the corpus will work well because probably I will not want to add any more texture to the sound. Let's also quickly try the vocoder as if I wanted to add more high ends. No, the vocoder sounds bad. Same with chorus. And phaser and flanger. What is left is to mix a bit the lead with the sound. I've mentioned here using the compression and OTT, so let me say a few words about that. The deal was to make the lead sound more present in the track. Last week, we ended up with a lead that sounded like this. And maybe we can even hear that in solo, but the reverb is not glued well to the dry synthesizer, to the dry lead. Also, on top of it, if I play the lead with the pad and with the kick drum, the lead sound quickly gets lost in the whole mix. So the idea was to squeeze the sound a bit to make it more flat, and what comes to mind is, well, usually to try some compression, and especially the OTT compression. But right now, the overdrive does a lot of gluing job. With the overdrive, the sound suddenly is getting more full and the reverb is also more present. So the overdrive is the effect that already makes the sound fuller. So there's a high chance that maybe if I try to add even more compression, let's try quickly the OTT preset. Nothing much is going to change in the sound. Of course, when I turn on the OTT preset, it sounds like the lead has more high frequencies. But more or less this is the same effect I can get by just using an equalizer. So for me, using an OTT compression here is not going to make much sense. OTT compression boosts the high frequencies by quite a lot. This is something I can do a bit in the equalizer. OTT compression also boosts the low frequencies, but the low frequencies will be something I will remove from the equalizer anyways when I will be equalizing the sound. So let's not use the OTT. Let's quickly try to use a limiter as if I wanted to make the sound even more flat. Again, I can compare whether using a limiter, I can check whether using a limiter will make sense or not. Limiter works as intended and makes the reverb even more present. It makes the sound more flat. Let me see if after using a limiter like that, the sound will be overpowered or not. So I'm playing the whole, let's say, mix again. And from what I can hear is that, well, a limiter is going to be a bit useful. I tried a second ago to also just turn up the volume of the sound with the utility, because if it turned out that the lead was full enough by just increasing its volume, then I wouldn't need to use a limiter. But using a limiter that decreases the dynamics of the sound and using an utility that just increases the volume of it, these are two totally different things. I don't know why, but a limiter, with a Ableton's limiter, I can compress the sounds in two ways. I can either drive the signal louder towards the threshold, towards the ceiling level. So in other compressor effect, this would be called the threshold. Or I can bring the threshold down by using the ceiling control. I don't know why these two are present. So usually I'm using both. Let me add quite a bit of compression. Let's play around at first with look ahead and then release times. It will be easier to hear differences between these various parameters when a bit more compression is applied. I can hear the automatic release. I feel like it sounds best. The look ahead will also be short. And that's it. Now I want to fine tune the amount of limiting applied. Maybe before that, let's turn off the limiter and adjust the volume of the lead without it. Maybe I don't need to hear the percussion yet. And after adjusting the volume of the lead sound, it would be the time to use the limiter. Maybe let's turn down a bit the amount of limiting. That right now is not doing anything because the yellow fader, the yellow gain reduction meter was not moving at all. And the limiter should work almost, very subtly, just like that. In case you do not know where to listen for the difference in the sound is in the beginning. Without the limiter, the sound in the beginning is louder than the reverb that comes after, but with the limiter everything is more even. We can also just look quickly at the sound through the oscilloscope. And this is the sound after using the limiter, but before it, if I turn off the limiter, you can see here the difference in the dynamics. Indeed, before using the limiter, this beginning part of the lead was louder, just a bit louder. Okay, after the sound is compressed, I don't need to use OTT compression. A limiter does compress the sound enough already. The last effect could be both equalizer, but also we can check if just a bit of sidechain compression will not make this lead fit the beat more. But before equalizing the sound, I will try yet a simple sidechain effect. Of course, the sidechain does not only have to make everything sound very pumping. If I will decide to use sidechain on this lead sound, this sidechain effect is going to be subtle, as more or less as the limiter. Okay, a quick sidechain compression will look like that. And for me, such sidechain still sounds too aggressive. Let's narrow the modulation range to give the sound less pumping. It seems to work. In solo it sounds like this. So as I've said, if I decide to use the sidechain compression, it will be in very small amounts. Alright, since it's decided that I want to use the compression, I will temporarily increase the pumping more, increase the pumping, the amount of pumping, so I can adjust this rhythm and modulation curve more precisely. The sidechain is going to have such a rhythm. Now coming back to the modulation range. I think we started out with something like that. Let's A/B this shaper and utility group to see and fine-tune the amount of sidechain compression or just the volume modulation I'm gonna use. Still a bit too much. And maybe now it could be used a bit more. Just a bit more of the sidechain compression. We will leave the sidechain like that. Once more, I can adjust the volume of the lead and the utility. That is because after such a sidechain compression, even though it's very small, I might want to compensate a bit for that pumping effect by increasing the volume of the pad, of the lead. So the utility will be the last effect before the equalizer. I can see on the OBS that the volume of my microphone is higher, maybe a bit too high in relation to the beat. Maybe if someone could tell me if the volume levels are okay or not. Well, if they are not, I can always balance that out a bit. And meanwhile, I will start working on the equalization. Again, as usual, what will be mandatory is to use a high-pass filter. Because again, I don't want to overlap the low end, yes. Then the beat. I don't want to overlap the low end from the lead with the low end from the kick drum. Ableton does sound a bit quieter than your voice. Now it should be even. What's up, Anti-Dive? I'm not sure, are you using, FL Studio or Ableton? I forgot, because even though you were one of the first person to comment on my FL Studio tutorial, now you are watching the stream from Ableton. What does it look like? I see. But you seem to have some experience with FL because you have mentioned that some things in FL Studio are indeed more intuitive than in Ableton. I'm not sure if that's the case of just FL Studio, but in FL Studio, knowing shortcuts makes the work so much easier. Every key on the keyboard is going to have some meaning in FL Studio. While I haven't checked out how many shortcuts are in Ableton, I wouldn't say that in Ableton you have so many keyboard shortcuts as in FL Studio. Yeah, but after you learn, yes, how to open playlist, mixer, how to open recent projects, how to cycle through various effects, you don't need to use mouse that much in FL Studio. Okay, we will use a low pass filter, just a bit. Again, to not make this lead sound too harsh. We will keep a low pass filter like that. After using a low pass and high pass filter, it would be time for me to try to use a low and high shelf filters to further build the frequency balance between the lows, mids, and highs before I actually use peaking filters to make more fine adjustments. I will at first make the sound a bit brighter, maybe a bit to compensate for that low pass filter. But right now, if I didn't use a high shelf filter, the sound would again be a bit lost when the kick drum is playing. Not to mention what would happen if I played the lead sound along with the hi-hats and the pad. So I'm not 100% certain about the pad because I think that when I will be arranging the track, I don't see playing this lead along with the pad together. Now onto the low shelf filter. Yeah, I hear it's going to be useful. The loudest part of this sound, and maybe the most resonating as well, is actually that peak at 300 Hz. Or at 400 Hz. This is the peak I will have to keep in check most. If this peak is going to be too loud, well, the whole mix is going to start to sound hollow, so we have to make sure that this single peak is not too loud. Maybe I will be also fine enough by just using the Q control and the high pass filter, so let me use that instead of a low shelf filter. Now it's time for a peaking filter, or bell filters. Once again, we have to sweep through the frequency spectrum to see if something has to be boosted or not. My guess is that I will have to boost something in the frequency range from 3K upwards to maybe make the lead a bit brighter, and some cuts will have to be done in the frequency range below 1K because I feel like the sound is a bit too hollow still. But those options like crossfader and FL Studio you showed in the video, I have no idea how I would do that in Ableton, the crossfader. Have I been using the crossfader? I have been, yes. In Ableton you would have to use the loop feature in Simpler. When you use the Simpler and you are using the Simpler in either one shot or classic mode, somewhere below the waveform you are going to have the loop switch. If you turn it on, then you have a few settings that will make this work exactly like the crossfade knob in FL Studio. Programming drums is intuitive. That's maybe because of the step sequencer that is in FL Studio. In Ableton, even yes, the drums have to be sequenced in the MIDI clip. Personally, I prefer using the MIDI clip. Okay, nothing to be boosted. Let's see let's see whether I should cut something from the sound. And what does it sound like in solo? Yeah, the sound is getting lighter and less hollow with that. Okay. And this would be the difference in the sound after using the first picking filter to clean the sound to make it less hollow. Let's listen to that again. That's it. Let me try to use another filter. And in 1K range, I'm going to again have some quite hollow sound. Let me solo that. There's sort of a whistle noise. That will be also cut. Again, another preview into sound. It is getting cleaner. And the last frequency range to cut is somewhere in between 1K and 3K. Here I'm still gonna have a bit of whistle and resonance that I want to find and remove. And that hollow sound, and that whistle here in 3K sounds like this. Let's try one more filter. Making more cuts at this frequency range will start to make the synthesizer sound too empty. As we have been seeing in many other sounds, 1K range is something that fills nicely the sound in a rather transparent way. So if I already made some cuts here at around 3K, and there's also a single cut at 1K, making another cut here will start to, well, make the sound too empty. Let's listen to that again. I don't feel like I want to remove that. I feel like there's some resonance still in that higher frequencies range. Let me try to find that. Is it here? Yes, it is. Let's see before and after effect. And let's see if I don't need to use one more filter. It doesn't sound like it. So the whole sound before equalization will be probably very hollow and muddy. But after it, we have something that fits the sound more. I feel like there's still something a bit wrong about this sound. Maybe there's a bit too much of high end. And after adjusting the high shelf, let's again adjust the volume of the whole sound, preferably with the percussion added. In theory, maybe we should also equalize the dry sound, but this will come a bit later. Now I want to do something different. So now the lead sounds like that. Let me check quickly what there was about what I wanted to finish equalizing in the percussion channel. There was a simple hi-hats. The reverb was already equalized, as well as the dry sound. This was EQ'd too. There's a single hi-hat that I didn't touch. So we will equalize this hi-hat quickly, and maybe I will start arranging just a bit of the track, because I have to get an idea on what else should I add to this track. Right now, with the lead sound and pad group being in the same 8 bars long loop, I have no idea what more should I add. That is because, as I said earlier, I don't plan on playing both lead and pad together. Maybe after making some quick arrangement, it will be easier to think of what else should be added. But that will come right after I equalize one of the last hi-hats. Yes, we will also get rid of that highest noise in this sample, but I'm not sure if that's going to make a difference. The difference is almost inaudible. Maybe if I didn't have headphones right now, probably I wouldn't hear anything. I mean, any difference. But the high pass filter is set for me at the right place. I want to make this hi-hat just a bit lighter on purpose. Partial filter will sound bad. Just a bit of a mid-end cut could be used. For that, again, I will use this Q parameter. Just like that. And now on to my favorite filters. Nothing to boost. And nothing more to cut. How do you decide what BPM you want to have for a track? When I have the track arranged, maybe when I have either full arrangement or whether the track is just arranged just a bit, that's the moment where I try to change the BPM slightly. Right now, at this moment, changing the BPM maybe would not have that much of an influence over the whole vibe of a track as the sounds that I create. So for now, the sound design would be more important for me than changing the BPM of the track. Usually I start making a track with 150 and later I adjust it if necessary. I can try this quickly now. And for me, 145 is just a bit too slow, 155 it's already too fast. So on average, I start out with 150 and later I might adjust the BPM by 1 or 2. But this is something that will come later and it's not going to have that much influence over the sound. So it looks like the whole percussion is equalized. I will finish equalizing the lead sound a bit later. I've been talking about making a little of arrangement work with because I'm not sure exactly what else should be added to the track. I would like to also automate the shifter on and off switch. So again, after the build up, maybe the shifter will be on. And let me think, if it was some pre-drop and build up, what should be playing after the drop? Should we play the lead only or the bad group only? I think I should play after the drop the lead. It seems to fit better. Again, playing both bad group and the lead is not going to sound good in my opinion. That's already too complicated. So the lead sound will be something I'm gonna play after that drop. If so, then the whole pad can be copied to the, let's say, build up here. Okay, it did sound that weird because I didn't copy the automations. I have to click this lock icon once again to copy everything, including the automations. So sometimes, yes, there is a need that you want to just copy the, for example, the rhythm without affecting the automations. If so, then you want to click this yes lock icon. And what does the drop could sound like? Could we have a look at the frequency spectrum for the tracks span on Vision 4X? What exactly does interest you? I think I'm going to have enough space to actually use both span and well, Vision 4X. Let's make the low end a bit more precise. Here we have the span and now the Vision 4X. At this stage of the production. The thing is that I'm already doing most of the mixing job during the sound design stage. You could see that I have lots of equalization on individual channels as if I was already making a full mix down of the track. So even at this moment, the frequency balance looks correct. In most tracks, we are going to have this frequency range at around 300 Hz being the quietest frequency range. The low end is already heavily accentuated here. Maybe the high end is a bit off. I don't think that spike at the highest frequencies range is something that I should have. But the whole track doesn't sound that bad either. If I want to compare this to anything, let's see what does the reference track look like. But I have to paste it here. Plus I okay. Yeah. I routed the reference track to bypass the master channel, so I will not play this track by accident during the live stream. But on Voxenkel's band, this is what does the reference track look like. And here's my track. There's some similarities here and there. Maybe the rumble is here cut a bit too much, but this is not the final mixdown yet. I would say that we are on the right way. Nothing looks too bad. How I should arrange this pre-drop. Let me play it and think for a while. At first, I'm not interested in having these bad elements. Or maybe I'm going to play them from time to time. Something like that. And to create a bit more tension before the drop, I could remove this part of the MIDI clip. For now, the drop is a bit off yet. That transition between the breakdown and the drop is still too weird, too odd. But maybe that's because of the percussion. We could maybe play the percussion somewhere in the end of it, of the drop, but we would play later the beat without it. What is also weird is that the lead sound before breakdown and after it sounds very different. That's mostly because of the shifter, which maybe is automated wrong. What if I made the automation look like that, where the shifter is used only once every time, every 4 bars? What if I add percussion now? Okay, now I am working on making this transition between the breakdown, that small bridge, and the beat itself smoother. For now, still there are some differences between the breakdown and the drop, which makes, well, the drop itself not smooth enough. But for that, I have to play around with. Now to make the transition smoother, I want to play around with the percussion. Play no percussion at all in the beginning of the drop is not a good solution. Because the percussion coming at full, let's say, power and force, well, it throws you off a bit. On the other hand, if we don't play anything, if we keep playing the percussion, a full percussion right from the beginning, I feel like the drop is not, let's say, heavy enough. But of course, my goal is not to arrange the heaviest drop ever. I'd rather want to have a very smooth transition. So the solution would be to play a part of the percussion in the first bar after the drop. Let's see what should be turned off here. Maybe automating just the hi-hat too will be enough. Because the hi-hat too I have here sounds very characteristic. That sounds a bit better, but still this is not what I'm looking after. I'm very afraid that it's just this lead synthesizer that doesn't fit the track at all. If that's really the case, then no matter how I try to arrange it, it will be difficult to make a beat sound good. Well, in the end, a track and the arrangement is good if all of the elements just flow together. And I've been making already quite a lot of work with that lead sound to try to fit it to the beat, so it might happen that just the sound is not something I would like to use here. But let's keep trying arranging it. Okay, the shifter after the drop shouldn't be present, but maybe somewhere a bit later. The thing is, when I listen to the track, I expect after the drop the same sound of the lead sound as in before. This will make the transition smoother, but here I already have a bit different melody. So here let's change it to make the lead sound in the same way as before the drop. You can also play this a bit offbeat. And there's something more that changes the sound. At first we have this. envelope 2 that was modulating the wavetable position. There's also the vinyl distortion effects that we have to delay. And the shifter is already automated. What if I didn't play the percussion at all after the drop? That's one more thing I want to check. It does not going to work out well. Shifter still doesn't sound interesting here. I have an idea to add some distorted noise to the beat that would enhance the rhythm in the high end. Regarding the other sounds, it doesn't seem like a respace is going to fit well. It's not that kind of a track where a respace could be good. I would like to have something more atmospheric. Okay, I have an idea what is wrong with this lead sound. This lead shouldn't be played that often. I have an idea that playing this lead more rarely, let's say maybe once every 4 bars, is going to make this sound finally fit into the beat. But if I try to force to play this sound too often, yes, it ruins the vibe of the track. So what should I do? Okay, and that way the beat sounds already better. Of course, the breakdown now is going to sound too empty when the lead is not played that often, but this is something but I will have to fill the empty space with another sound. Yes, and I was wondering what should be the other sound. maybe not the Reese bass, but maybe some other bass line. If I had a modulated bass with some interesting texture. Yeah, this would sound better. So yeah, I will either try to create a bassline sound, but I remember I had something in the drum rack here. This is something I thought is going to sound good. That was the rack I was using to resample the kick drum into something new, but for now we did only create a pad out of the kick drum. The lead sound was synthesized from scratch. Okay, I think I will try to make a modulated bass, maybe not something like in a dubstep music, but still some bass line that will be just more original than there is one. Let me imagine once more how it would sound like with the current beat. Yeah, let's try to make a bass sound, and maybe in meanwhile, when I will be working with the wavetable, maybe by accident some other sound will come out that is going to be interesting enough. I had a way different vision of the track. In the beginning, I was trying to make something with more eerie and unsettling pads. So something maybe more dark, but now with the lead sound being like that, the whole vibe of the track changes a bit. And there is now a problem on, yes, how to arrange the track and maybe what other sounds should be used in such a beat. And also on the same hand, I wouldn't like to throw away just that lead sound, because on its own, it sounds interesting. But okay, if I was to create a bass line, then what we would have to do is to play with definitely some wavetables from distortion category, and we would have to also use the wavetable position control to modulate the bass somehow. I'm not gonna lie, an LFO section in Serum would be much better for this sort of automations, or even a performer from old Massive Instrument. Here the wavetable is basically nothing when it comes to creating rhythms. So I'm looking for some wavetables that are going to give me already quite heavy and distorted sound, so I don't have to use that much of distortion later. But maybe in the filter category. I'm not going to have this many. Okay, coming back to what I had in the beginning. What if I try to play something like that in the beat with a little bit of low pass filter? No, it sounds way too bad. And probably using warping will not help either. If making a bass line out of that doesn't help, let's see what it would sound like with some reverb. Yeah, now I'm just trying some things out, experimenting a bit. Okay, the bass sound doesn't fit here. How about trying something from your upcoming back? It's a bit tempting to try out, but let's see. Most of the sounds from the back here are going to be just some some screeches and leads. But okay, we can try something like that. If I... Okay. Let me copy everything. And see. We will paste that beat of the track into the project of the back, and we will see what else could fit. Yeah, in that pack I made recently some arpeggiated plug sounds that maybe something like that is going to fit enough. Okay, now let me also paste the part of the track I'm having. So here we have the track we've been working on so far. Okay, what is happening? We made quite a mess. Of course, yes, now you will not hear anything because I have to yet hear this plugin. I also have to adjust a bit the volume. Now it should be pretty okay. So, what do we have? Here we have that track we have been working on so far, and on top of it, we can try some of the sounds from the back. I've been mentioning some plug sounds and coming from some a bit distorted plug sounds. So this would be a few of the presets in the end in the wavetable pack. Let me see. Let's try this one at first. Okay, a lead like that sounds promising. Yeah, this would be actually a decent idea for the sound for this beat. In the beginning, yes, some time ago, I was thinking of what type of a sound should be added to the track. I was thinking about a wrist bass, but I thought this is not going to fit the beat. Sound distorted noise was also an option, but I wanted to have some melodic element in a track, and a distorted noise wouldn't be a good thing. Another pad wouldn't be a good sound because I have already a pad in my track, as well as some one-shot, let's say, lead sound that we just made a week ago. But I wasn't thinking of an arpeggiated plug sound, so maybe that's... But so now this is something I'm trying out here, and it seems to sound good. So this is the type of sound I could use. Let me see what else is in the pack. This is already too bright. Sounds maybe a bit too uplifting. Some of the presets also, yes, should sound better once I make Ableton audio effects, for example, with some distortion. For example, this sort of just a bit of a screech sound. This is something I tried to do in the wavetable to recreate the screech sound from the Godzilla track by Phantasm, but in the Phantasm track, the sound is much more distorted, and here in the wavetable, I don't have that much options to use distortion yet, so some sounds, well, are going to be better after creating the audio effect tracks. Right now, here I have just the wavetable output. Maybe something like that. This is the preset here. This is not going to fit. It sounds just a bit like the screech. Maybe in the end, let's try this. What if I use a different melody? I mean, what if I pitch it down a bit? Nah, the arpeggiator here sounded best. But I also have a few of Serum sounds. Maybe I'm not going to check every of these. But let's see what in the Serum part of the pack could fit. But here mostly I have some screeches. If I try to add something like that. Then again, at least in my opinion, it sounds bad. Nah, something like that. Is that kind of sound I will want to use in my project. So let's move over to our project and let's use the plug. Maybe we will change a bit the sound of it. But using a plug, after all, in my track will be a good idea to try out. So thanks for the suggestion. I also think that was a bit sneaky way to check out what's inside the pack. That is almost fully finished. Okay, let's paste it over. The sound is, of course, dry right now. And at first, before I adjust the sound itself, I would like to work a bit with the melody. I'm not sure if I should add the pad sound. Oh, this plug is going to go well with the pad because these two sounds have the same rhythm. While the pad sound has the rhythm not because of the arpeggiator but because of the volume modulation. The plug itself, well, had an arpeggiator, so that's why it sounded just like that. But yes, I have to copy everything about this pad here. There are too many automations here and there. Now if I add the plug, it's going to sound okay. So now let's adjust the melody in the arpeggiator. Let's also, yes. Actually, I should just use an arpeggiator once more. Why is the sounds? Why does the sounds stutter a bit? I'm not sure why does it happen. But maybe we will fix that later. Okay. Definitely I will keep the same rhythm as before, that is 16th of a bar. Now when I take a look at the MIDI clip, I see the reason for why it sounds so popped. Yes, here it is. Yeah, thank you for suggesting to use something from my pack. Actually, it will be the one of few times where I'm using something from a sample pack or a preset pack. So yeah, now I'm gonna think of a melody to use. Maybe I will change the color of the channel because I can't see anything in the piano roll. And what was the key of our track? I don't remember well. Was it a G? In the MIDI clip I have A sharp and B minor. I mean A sharp minor. So let's use the same in this piano roll here in the same channel. And the first note in the arpeggiator will be G. Nothing seems to fit well. Okay, what if I try a different scale? If I use a Phrygian scale, well, I could also try to use the Phrygian scale, because if I change the Phrygian scale in the lead sound, the notes are still aligned well. So let's try the Phrygian scale. That's one of my most favorite scales. For making well again, industrial techno sound that sounds more creepy or eerie. Also, someone mentioned in past the Dorian scale, that is also interesting. Let's place the second note at B3. Okay, G sharp also sounds here. It sounds great too. Let's find a fourth note for the arpeggiator if that's necessary. The fourth note would be at A sharp. the fifth note will be already too much. I would like the rhythm to be a bit more repetitive. I will play around with the notes once more. And let's add the kick drum to figure out how I want the rhythm to work like in the arpeggiator. Yes, and instead of a kick drum, I added percussion. Down and up will sound best. Now onto the offset. So what does the offset do in arpeggiator is that if... yeah, maybe I will draw that. If I have a rhythm in an arpeggiator that looks like that the first note is a bit lower, the other one is higher, yes, and higher. Typically, an arpeggiator will be starting the whole pattern, the whole cycle from the first note. And that is how the arpeggiator will sound like when the offset is set to 0. But if I set the offset to 1, yes, then the whole pattern shifts in time like that. And the first note that was here will be now the last one in the cycle. That's what does the offset do. Down to the gate, so the lengths of each note in the arpeggiator. Shorter notes sound promising, and typically what you could do with this is to, well, throw in lots of reverb and maybe some OTT compression. But in case of these beats, I feel like I will want the notes to be longer. I imagine that I will want to use later maybe some phaser or flanger. Let's see what it would sound like. Yes, and with a flanger the sound would be more interesting like that. So for the flanger to be audible better, it would be also, yes, better if the notes in the sequence if the notes in the sequence were longer. So the gate will stay at higher value. transpose section is something that I don't use often. It's, well, if I remember well, what does the transpose section do is that it can transpose the whole sequence from time to time up or down. So the whole arpeggiator is going to sound even more melodic. And this transpose section doesn't sound good here. So the transpose is something that I don't need to use. As well as the velocity. I'm not even sure what does the velocity do, but maybe it adds more dynamics by some retrigger feature. And probably the retrigger is later dependent on the velocity of each note. But yeah, the main settings of the arpeggiator are in the left section, and this is something I have already adjusted. No swing needed either. Okay. And the arpeggiator, I want the arpeggiator to sound like that. Once more, I might want to check out the MIDI clip. Alright, the melody stays like that. Now the thing is, I would like to try playing chords on this plug, but I can't play chords by simply adding more notes into the MIDI clip, because the more notes I add into the MIDI clip, the more the arpeggiator will have to work with. So adding more notes instead of, well, playing chords will change the melody coming from the arpeggiator, and this is something we could see when I was trying to play around with the MIDI clip more and more. Maybe one last thing I will try is to changing the pattern. No, in mid time, no, it's not going to work. So before I add chords, before I try to play chords, I have to export this MIDI melody. So at best, I will just duplicate the channel. And now to set up everything, we need to do the following. Instead of all inserts, let's select plug row. We have to arm record the sound onto which I want to export the arpeggiated melody. And now hit record. And the melody is exported without the arpeggiator. Now I can try to play around with chords. Okay, maybe let's just transpose the whole melody. Okay, maybe something like that will sound good. Okay. Now, playing chords probably it's not going to work either, because it will make the synthesizer a bit too complex. What I like currently about this sound is that it is on its simpler side. So no, I don't think I'm gonna play any chords. So with no chords, then what's left is to adjust the synthesizer itself more. Let's see. I will keep the pad playing in the background, so again I have some context. Inside of the wavetable, I will not change the waveforms itself. We will be playing mostly with the macros, but I might also want to tweak some other synthesizer settings. So now I will turn off the LFO that is modulating here. Oh, not the pitch, but the wavetable position. I will have to change that. Okay, what is happening to the sound? Why? Why did it sound like that in the end? Probably that's because of it. Is it because of that? That's weird. What if I loop a smaller selection of that sound? Yes. Probably I didn't change to all insert back. Yes, now it's going to sound the same every time I play it. Coming back to the synthesizer, again, let's tweak the macros at first. But let's play something in the background. Sub oscillator will be useful. A bit of the plug. We will make this sound more like a plug, but the macro I added here doesn't give me enough modulation range, so let's turn this down even more. The sustain. Okay, the amplitude envelope sounds more appropriate now. I didn't tweak the release yet. Tweaking the release on plug sounds often, yes, helps making them sound much more interesting. Instead of a sound that cuts off very quickly, usually there is some sort of a tail added to the sound with the release added. I'm going to keep the sound like that. There's also some pitch envelope. That again will make this sound too complicated, so maybe let's not use the pitch envelope here. And in the end there was some, yes, pitch LFO. Okay, let me tweak the sound a bit more in solo. FM modulation can sound promising. And if I use much more of the FM modulation, the synthesizer, the plug again gets more and more interesting. This is a good choice. We will keep adding more and more FM modulation then. Now I'm wondering if this lead with the hi-hats might be a little bit too much energy for the track. We will see that in a second. There is also something that I can always do is that I could automate the volume of this black sound to be a bit quieter in the beginning of the, let's say, 4 bars long loop, and in the end of that 4 bars long loop, the plug could be louder. So yes, the volume of the plug gets constantly higher. This is something that I could try to do if this was, let's say, this plug was too much for this track. Now onto the oscillator 2. Here we also have some FM modulation, but let's see what happens if I add more of it. Okay, nothing much. Let's also play around with the wavetable position. And most of the sound is already adjusted. I turned off the LFO that was modulating the first oscillator. I can bring it back to see if it's still going to make sense. What if I slow it down? Okay, it doesn't sound well here. What about the FM amount? What I can also try is to modulate the volume envelope with the LFO. This is going to be interesting. Or maybe let's use that on the sustain instead. Okay, but why doesn't that work well? I see. Okay, modulating the sustain, at least through LFO, doesn't give any audible result. What I would have to do is to maybe modulate that manually. I don't see anything more that I could use the LFO on. The last thing in the synthesizer is to try to change the unisono settings. The unisono detune sounds too good. Sounds okay too. Alright, let me take one more minute to check if everything about the wavetable is set up. Very soon we will again play the beat and try to fit this sound in, preferably with the phaser adjusted. Because this sort of a phaser modulation is also interesting. I would like to also emphasize more the phaser itself, but this is something I'm going to do after a while. But yes, at first I will go through the wavetable settings. Should the filter be modulated? Not exactly. If not, let's just turn the filter off. I rarely use filter modulations like that. At least in the wavetable. For me, the filter section in the wavetable couldn't exist and I would not feel a difference. I have to keep the filter because there is a slight distortion coming from the filter circuit here. So unfortunately, I have to keep the filter on. We will adjust the filter so it cuts as little of the frequencies as possible. Sometimes little changes in the sound can be introduced when I'm also using different filter circuits. After all, they try to add just a little different sound of distortion, especially with the drive set that high. Aside from that, there is nothing more to be adjusted inside of the filter. Volume envelope was already adjusted. The second basically modulating anything didn't work out, so I'm not going to play around with the second envelope. Now with the third one. LFO can be also removed and maybe reset as well. I will make sure that the sub oscillator is not too quiet. Okay. Sound is finished. It didn't take that much time because, well, I took the preset indeed. So with the whole beat, yes, we were wondering if with the hi-hats the energy is going to be too high. Let's play it along the hi-hats. With the pad. It doesn't sound that bad, so maybe the melody is a bit wrong. If I pitch it down by an octave. And I think this is going to make the plug sound more gritty. Like in Scalameria Techno again. So maybe something I could do. Is to add a high pass filter, because after all this sound is filled with low end. And if I quickly distort it, maybe with the amp, then the plug is going to start good. It will start to sound good. How we fit that plug with the beat, what should fit this plug sound? We have to turn the volume down to hear a difference. to hear what does the plug could sound like. Okay, the plug seems to fit the first lead sound good. And it means that we can keep the lead sound in the beat. What about the pad? It's not that bad. Okay, it sounds decent. So yeah, so we have to adjust the effects I have in the plug group. Maybe we will end up for today with just adjusting the phaser, and the distortion will be something I will do next week. But for now, the phaser has to be more aggressive. We have to pronounce this effect more, as if I wanted to have more modulation inside. So now what I'm doing is adjusting the phaser settings to try to make that frequency sweep, that effect we are hearing, pronounced most. At first I took the center parameter down. What does it do is that it moves all that modulation, all that sweep to work more with the mid and lower frequencies. So in that way, that's why we are hearing now more of the phaser being used in when the center is set that low. And as we could hear, using more spread also helps making the phaser more pronounced, because all these notches that are moving across the frequency spectrum are moving in the wider range. Maybe we can bring the Fox and Ghost band to see what does it look like. What does it look? How does these notches look like on the frequency spectrum? And in the end, what is going to pronounce the phaser most is the feedback itself. But maybe we will not increase the feedback much more to avoid getting that swishing kind of sound. Flipping the polarity in the phaser effect will not work good because then I lose all of that noise and crunch in the sound, and this is what mainly gives the whole sound the movement. If we expand the phaser effects on the middle section, we will have the LFO settings, so we can control now the movement of all of these notches, and by default it's just an LFO with a shape of triangle wave. This sounds interesting. Maybe not as much. Maybe let's not mess around with the LFO settings. The simpler the better in that case. Also now I'm not certainly sure what does the envelope follower do here. I don't know what does it control. But let's try to use that and adjust its settings, yes, according to what do I hear. And next to the envelope follower, there is a safe base knob. What does it do is this probably cuts off the phaser effect for the frequencies below. Currently 100 Hz. Using the safe base here will not make much sense because I, on purpose, set the center frequency that low because I wanted to moderate the whole sound. I might as well maybe turn the safe base down to 5 Hz. Of course, later when we will be equalizing the sound, yes, the low end will be removed anyways, and I have already a high-pass filter added, so even though the safe base is turned all the way down, it doesn't mean that, yes, there will be problem with the low end. mixing in the second LFO does not make sense. Let's try use just a bit of saturation coming from the warmth knob. And let's see, I think everything about the phaser is now adjusted. That sounded funny. No, the LFO does not need to be changed. The envelope follower section was already adjusted. What about the tri-wet? Yeah, there is no need to change the tri-wet effect. Okay, with and without phaser, the plug sounds like that. It helps making the sound less static, though definitely the sound needs to be beefed up, because right now, even without the amp, it's going to sound too soft. The amp was added quickly, but maybe more distortion will have to be added to the whole sound. But with the beat, the plug sounds like this. Maybe the sort of a high frequency noise is still a bit unpleasant. Probably I would have to adjust that in the phaser effect by maybe turning down the either amount or feedback. With the reduced feedback, it's going to sound like that. So now I don't have that much of that weird frequencies swoosh. Sounds good. Yes. Again, there will be a slight problem with arrangement. Now with the plug, with the pad, the beat is too intense. What if I use a pitch like that? with a higher pitch, it sounds, I think, better, more intense. But maybe on the other hand, again, it doesn't sound that industrial. Well, from what you could see, still more work will have to be done to, well, make this tracks and sounds fit better. I will have to remind a bit what does Scalameria Techno track sounds like, because Scalameria also uses synthesizers like that with lots of frequency modulation. One of best tracks of Scalameria, in my opinion, is Let Your Flesh Be My Sacrament, something like that. You can find it on the Hate channel. Similar sounds are in that track, but also in many others coming from the Scalameria. Maybe it will turn out that this track will sound something a bit similar to that. But right now, this would be everything for today, as I'm already tired. If there are some questions in the end of the stream, let me know. I will play just a bit more with the melody in this plug sound while I will be waiting for any additional questions. If I add some quick reverb, let's see. Yeah, one thing I really don't like about Ableton's piano roll is that now I can't. Well, when I pitched down the whole melody by 1 octave, now some notes are overlapping, I think. Yes, for example, the pitched up melody is here. And if I want to, yes, again, change the pitch of that part of the melody where I transposed the notes, I have to select notes manually like that. If I try to select all the notes by pitch, well, I would select a bit too many notes. In FL Studio, if I was using FL Studio, I could group the notes, and then when I grab either of the notes inside of the group, by moving one note, I would already move up or down the whole group of notes, which is much more convenient. And now in Ableton, I don't have that feature. But okay, seems like there are no questions in the end for the end of that stream. So let's see once again what does everything sound like together, and I will finish the stream. Yeah, the plug also seems to fit the pad sound. Yeah, thanks for watching, Antidive. I feel like you have sat through the whole stream. Very patient of you. Okay. So, everyone, have a good night and see you next Sunday.